Guilty as charged.
Stop laughing!
Hey, let's get them out of here!
The movie begins with an animated sequence titled Me and My Shadow. In this Looney Tunes-inspired cartoon short, the Joker is a famous celebrity preparing for a performance. However, his shadow rebels against him, starts acting out his persona, and after injuring several people, the shadow steps onto the stage and begins a singing performance as the real Joker. When Joker finally reclaims his identity from the shadow, the police arrive and start beating him up. In the next scene, Arthur is in Arkham State Hospital, where he has been imprisoned for 2 years because of his committed crimes. One morning, he has a scheduled meeting with his lawyer, and the prison guards wake him up to get ready.
Hey, Arthur, you feeling crazy today or what? Let's go, Arthur.
Come on, Fleck. Hey, Fleck, you got a joke for us today?
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Move.
Big fit me!
Hey, Fleck, you got a joke for us today?
I got a joke for you. This guy's dog dies. He goes down to the church and he asks Father if he'd perform a funeral for him. Sorry, my son, we can't have a service for an animal. And he says, do you think £2,000 would be enough to cover the service? Why didn't you tell me the dog was Catholic?
After this, he's taken to his lawyer, Miss Stewart. On the way, they pass by a music class. A girl named Harleen Quinzel, also known as Lee, notices Arthur as he walks by, calls out to him, and then mimics a gun gesture at her head, which makes Arthur smile. When they reach Miss Stewart, she is upset to see that the guards brought Arthur without an umbrella, leaving him soaked from the rain. She then explains to Arthur that a doctor, Beatty, believes he developed a split personality due to his traumatic childhood. This other Joker personality inside him, according to her, is responsible for his criminal behavior and needs proper mental health care and doctors for treatment. Therefore, Dr. Beatty wants to videotape an interview with Arthur to prove his competency so that he can have a proper trial.
Arthur, I'm not here only to help with your defense. Let's start with the first incident, okay? 3 men who accosted you on the subway, who bullied you. Did you black out? See bright lights? How about Murray Franklin? What, if anything, do you remember about that night?
The music.
You came out dressed as Joker.
My mom and I used to watch it.
He's so handsome. Look at those sparkling white teeth.
Do you often hear her voice in your head?
All the time.
This other part of you, did it come out more after she died? You lived together, right? In a 1-bedroom apartment? Would he like to talk to me?
In the following scene, Arthur is in the jail courtyard. A young prisoner named Ricky approaches him, saying that the guards told him Arthur is a good kisser and that he wants to learn from him. Arthur gives him a quick kiss on the lips and then goes to the guards, who find the situation amusing.
He doesn't get a cigarette unless he tells a joke.
No, come on. He still makes us laugh, doesn't he? Ever since they made that TV movie about you, everybody still thinks you're a star. I said that's life. All right, Arthur.
The next day, Jackie takes him to the music class, where he is warmly welcomed. Later, when Jackie is distracted, Arthur meets Lee and introduces himself. Lee tells him that she set her parents' apartment on fire, which led her mother to admit her to this correctional facility.
Knock, knock. Sorry, kid. Your dad was killed in a car accident. The whole time I was watching, I kept thinking, I hope this guy blows his brains out. And for once in my life, I didn't feel so alone anymore. Ready for the judgment. Sing hallelujah, come on, get happy.
Thanks, pal.
Arthur then arrives in a room where it's announced on the news that he's been declared competent for trial, but Assistant DA, Harvey Dent, holds a press conference stating that the state will seek the death penalty for him. He calls Arthur a monster, while Arthur's supporters in Gotham continue to cause chaos in his name, seeing him as a martyr. Another prisoner asks Arthur how he feels about everything he just heard, and Arthur joyfully sings, "For once in my life, I have someone who needs me," expressing his love for Lee. Later, Jackie takes Arthur to a screening of the movie The Bandwagon. There, Arthur sits with Lee, but she wishes to go outside with him. Arthur tells her that if he did, the guards would shoot them, so he goes back to watching the movie. Meanwhile, Lee tries to get closer to him, but he doesn't pay attention. She then goes to smoke at the back. There, she lights her matchbox and throws it down, setting the theater room on fire before returning to her seat. After a while, as the fire spreads, it catches everyone's attention and people start panicking and rushing to escape. Taking advantage of the distraction, Arthur and Lee finally kiss and sneak out of the prison building. Outside, the two then happily start singing and dancing. Finally, they reach the facility's entrance gate, where a crowd of reporters is already waiting to cover Arthur's story. They start climbing the gate, but the guards quickly catch up, taking them back to their cells.
You want to play games on my watch, Arthur?
In this dream, he's dressed as Joker and performing on a stage with Lee, who sings a song expressing her love for Arthur. Later on, Lee visits Arthur in his cell, telling him that the guards allowed her in. She informs him that she's being sent back home because the administration sees Arthur as a bad influence on her. However, she's happy that she'll now have a chance to attend his trial every day. The two then start to get close, but before they proceed, Lee says she wants to be with his real self. She pulls out a bag of makeup she secretly brought with her and paints his face like a clown. After this, they share an intimate moment together. A few days later, Miss Stewart arranges an interview for Arthur with a television personality, Patty. She instructs Arthur to act as his true self and try to show that his alternate personality is responsible for the crimes, while his real self is a good person.
You want me to call you Arthur or the Joker?
Just be yourself.
2 years ago, the name Arthur Fleck hit Gotham like a hurricane. Fleck committed 5 horrific murders in the span of just 4 weeks. The Joker is sitting down for his first interview since that infamous night on Murray Franklin. What was going through your mind when you pulled out that gun and blew his brains out?
I was going through a lot back then. I don't really remember much from that night.
You did it on live TV, pal. Doesn't get any more real than that.
I thought Murray was playing a part in my show.
You get what you bleeping deserve. That's what you said. Do you deserve to die?
That's not who I am.
That wasn't really you.
No, that's
Let me get this straight. Alternate personality, this killer clown in you killed Murray.
Oh, do you really care? You don't. You want to talk about the things that I did in the past, not about who I am now. That's what we should be talking about, Patty.
What's changed, Arthur?
I'm not alone anymore.
You two put on quite a performance that night.
Oh, but a fool can have her charm.
When the interview airs on TV, Lee, standing outside a TV shop, sees him singing for her on screen. She breaks the shop's glass, steals the TV, and takes it with her. A few days later, Arthur's trial begins, and he is taken to court under tight security.
Enough is enough. This idiot doesn't deserve a trial.
Upon reaching the courtroom, Arthur searches for Lee, but she hasn't arrived yet. As the trial begins, Lee finally arrives, but is seated at the back. Meanwhile, the prosecution first calls a psychiatrist, Dr. Liu, as an expert witness.
Are you all right, Mr. Fleck?
Yes, Your Majesty. I'm just looking for someone.
Any and all outbursts will not be tolerated. Sydney, please call the case.
The people of the state of New York versus Arthur Fleck.
Dr. Liu states that he interviewed Arthur for about 2 hours, but found no evidence of multiple personality disorder. He believes that Arthur may have some minor psychological issues, but he committed the murders willingly, and only acts as if he has another personality. When it's the defense's turn, Miss Stewart points out that Dr. Liu only interviewed Arthur for 89 minutes, which is not enough time to diagnose his psychiatric disorders. Miss Stewart reveals that Arthur was physically abused in his childhood, which may have led him to retreat into fantasy and adopt another identity that may have surfaced when he was being bullied on the subway by 3 drunk men.
From all the trauma and abuse he suffered when he was attacked by 3 drunk bullies on the subway.
Then I remember Sophie.
Objection.
I had another...
Mr. Fleck,
These are my own personal private jokes. They weren't meant to be read out loud.
Mr. Fleck, quiet!
Miss Kane, please continue reading.
Then I remember Sophie.
That's Sophie Dumont, Mr. Fleck's neighbor, whom he was obsessed with. November 17th, stabbed Randall Kleiman-Hoffer to death and killed Murray Franklin.
He often wrote about his fantasies, women he had imaginary relationships with. These unfunny jokes.
Moments later, Miss Stewart visits Arthur and tells him that they can win the case, but Lee could ruin everything. Arthur replies that Lee is just like him, so she's looking out for him. Hearing this, Miss Stewart reveals that Lee actually belongs to a wealthy part of the city, and that her father, who is a doctor, is actually alive. Furthermore, Lee voluntarily committed herself to Arkham Asylum but later checked herself out. She has never set fire to any apartment, and even attended grad school to study psychiatry. Arthur once again drifts into his world of imagination, where he performs a stage song with Lee. In the song, they both express love for each other, but Arthur starts to feel that Lee is making it all about herself. Arthur sees Lee pointing a gun at him, and then she shoots him. Arthur is left confused, wondering why Lee did this to him. In the following scene, Arthur has returned to the asylum, where Jackie informs him that Lee has come to visit him. When he meets Lee, he asks if she lied to him. Lee admits that everyone tells a few lies, so she lied to get closer to him.
I just wanted you to like me.
Did you really check yourself in here?
Yeah.
You could have just wrote me a letter.
I haven't done anything with my life like you have.
Did you really watch that TV movie they made about me 20 times?
It was great. They're laughing at you in there. She doesn't care about you. I'm pregnant.
What?
Why do birds?
The next day, the trial hearing resumes. Prosecution calls Arthur's former neighbor, Sophie. Sophie recounts how Arthur once broke into her house, though she didn't report it to the police at the time. When Harvey asks if this behavior aligns with Arthur's usual self or shows a different personality, she says she didn't know him that well. However, she did have a good relationship with Penny, Arthur's mom, who told her that her son was mentally disturbed. Afterward, Miss Stewart questions Sophie, asking if Arthur ever threatened her or her daughter. Sophie states that Arthur never did anything like that, and that even Penny used to say he wouldn't hurt a fly. She adds that Penny told her she'd been telling Arthur a story since his childhood, about how he came to this world to spread joy, which is why she used to call him Happy.
Couldn't believe that he'd based his whole life around this made-up story. She just thought it was ridiculous that he thought he could make people laugh. I mean, she said Arthur wasn't funny at all.
There's always a joker.
Yeah, that he had never had a girlfriend.
Oh, I can't do this anymore.
I want to fire my lawyer.
Eventually, due to the chaos in the courtroom, the session is adjourned, and Arthur is taken back to the court-holding cell. After a few moments, Lee comes to see him, and encouraging his actions, she tells him that what he did was right, and that the audience present is supporting his decision. Later, as he is being taken back to the asylum, a radio news broadcast reveals that although Miss Stewart and Harvey opposed Arthur's self-representation, the judge reluctantly allowed it. Upon returning to the asylum, all the inmates show their support for him and cheer, causing chaos that eventually forces the guards to intervene to restore order. The next day, the hearing resumes, and Arthur arrives dressed in his Joker attire. Meanwhile, D.A. Harvey calls his next witness, Gary Puddles. Gary, a former co-worker of Arthur, testifies that he witnessed Arthur murder another co-worker, Randall. Instead of disproving him, Arthur first mocks Gary's last name, Puddles, questioning what kind of name it is.
Tell me, sir, is that your God-given name?
Yes.
You expect us to believe that your last name is Puddles?
I'm not going to let you turn my courtroom into a circus.
Mr. Puddles.
What else did you see that day?
You're stabbing him in the eye?
Randall was a bit of a bully, wasn't he? Did you catch my act on the Murray Franklin show later that night?
I was locked up in a police station in an interview room.
Man, you didn't see the show. You didn't see anything I had to say. I can't believe it. When, as you say, you saw me bash Mr. Clatterman, did I seem like a different person?
It isn't you.
It isn't me. So you don't think this is me? Because nobody knew I existed. But look around, look at all these people.
What you are proving here today is that you are no different.
Stupid guards at Arkham that think that they can treat me like trash. I am free.
couldn't go back to work. I felt so small.
You got a flair for the dramatic. You are tugging at my heartstrings, little Gary.
You were the only one at work who never made fun of me.
I said no more questions, Your Honor. That's all, folks.
At this point, some people criticize Arthur, saying he's heading straight for the death penalty, while a reporter asks what he would do if he were released. In response, Arthur looks at Lee, who begins singing, "We're gonna build a mountain from a little hill." Back in his imagination, he then performs the song with Lee and even marries her. Later, when Arthur is brought back to Arkham Asylum, Jackie and the other guards, furious at being insulted on live TV, viciously attack him. They tear his clothes and remove his makeup, telling him that his getup doesn't make him better than them.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Easy, darling. Come on,
I think he knocked himself out.
All right, I get it, Jackie. Let me tell you one I used to do about my mother. And she only dated abusive guys. Why do you stay with your abusive boyfriend? Beats the hell out of me! Let's go.
What'd you do to him? Saints go marching in. No! They're coming now!
He's up, Jay. Let him go. He can't breathe.
Eventually, he strangles Ricky to death, while Arthur listens to everything from his cell. The next day is the final day of the trial, and Lee arrives, enthusiastically dressed. Arthur, once again in his Joker attire, is instructed by Judge Herman to give his closing remarks. Arthur brings a chair close to the jury and sits silently. Finally, Arthur says he had planned to act as the Joker and blame everyone for his miserable life. But now he can't do it because he's not the person people expect him to be. Furthermore, he says that there's no Joker. Rather, it was just a fantasy he created for himself. He confesses to killing 6 people, including his mother, but now he wants to move past it all and start a new life. Saying this, he becomes emotional and wishes he hadn't committed those murders, but he knows he can't change the past. Hearing this, his supporters are disappointed, and many, including Lee, leave the courtroom. Moments later, about an hour after his closing remarks, the jury reaches a verdict. Before the verdict is announced, Arthur tries calling Lee to get her to come. He sings a song to let her know that if she leaves him, he'll have nothing left. On the other end, Lee listens to his song on voicemail, but doesn't respond in her state of disappointment. Shortly after, the jury begins announcing its verdict, declaring Arthur guilty of his murders.
In the matter of the people of the state of New York versus Arthur Fleck, guilty as charged with murder in the first degree against Maurice Franklin. Find Arthur Fleck guilty as charged.
Stop laughing! Hey, let's get them out of here!
Moments later, Arthur regains consciousness, exits through a broken wall, and steps outside. Outside, some of his supporters spot him and try to help him escape by putting him in a car.
Hey, get down. Stay down.
You cut around it? No, chill out. It's red. It's okay. Calm down.
Lee!
We can go.
All we had was the fantasy, and you gave up. There is no Joker. That's what you said, isn't it?
I can't live without you.
With a kind of a glow, and you'll say, with a touch of
Just
romance.
Stop.
Goodbye, Arthur.
The police arrive and send Arthur back to the asylum. A few days later, a guard tells Arthur that he has a visitor. As Arthur is on his way to meet his visitor, a young inmate stops him and offers to tell him a joke, which Arthur agrees to hear.
A psychopath walks into a bar and sees this famous clown sitting there, all alone. I used to watch you on TV. What can I get you? If you're buying, you can get me anything. How about I get you what you f***ing deserve?
As Arthur collapses, dying from his wounds, the young inmate, sitting behind him, laughs like a madman and carves a smile onto his face, with the knife becoming the real Joker. And this is where the movie ends. Be sure to check out our recap of the first Joker movie on our channel, which is way better than this one. I hope you guys enjoyed our recap, and if you did, be sure to subscribe, like, and share for more awesome movies, and as always, thank you very much for watching.